Yo, what's up, guys? It's Brad. And so I have a lot of people hit me up for information about Chem PE. And what that is basically chemical male enhancement. So, like, with regular male enhancement, you're using stuff like extenders, bath mates, you're using gels, you're using pumps, all that shit. But basically, Chem PE is where you're going to leverage, you're basically going to use like peptides, anabolics, you're going to use different stuff to take your gains to the next level beyond what was genetically possible for you just using the manual stuff or the pumps or the extenders or whatever. And it works really well. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, this shit actually works pretty fucking well. And I'm gonna give you my experience first. Obviously, not a doctor. I don't think that it's like a wise idea to do this, but a lot of guys who follow my stuff are into bodybuilding, and we're already pretty fucking crazy. So with all that shit said, if you're gonna do it, here's some real actual experience that I have with doing this stuff. GH, let's just talk about it. GH to me is the granddaddy of all peptides. It's the best one if you actually have a good source for GH, whether it's generic or pharma. I'd recommend just using generic high quality GH because it's so fucking cheap if you can get a really good connection. I used to get kits of this stuff for like 100 or 120 bucks a kit for really high quality shit, and it really worked phenomenally well. I think that if you had to just get one thing, it would be GH over all the other peptides that you could use for anything. You can use for bodybuilding or male enhancement. So I'm going to talk about how I like to use the GH for male enhancement specifically. Like, if I was purely taking it for male enhancement, and I have, this is how I would use it. So overall, with any growth hormone, IGF, one releasing peptide, secretagogue, whatever you're using, GH, like, you're going to want to. I found the best way to use it is to split up the dosages throughout the day. You don't want to take one big dosage of GH or IGF or whatever, because I found that when I did that, the gains weren't as good, and it just gave me the side effects of holding a lot of water. From what I understand about it is, like, if you take, say, 5-6 IUs of growth hormone, in one shot, what's going to happen is it becomes systemic, and it goes to the rest of your body. It could potentially grow your organs, it grows your head, it grows your hands, basically things you don't want to grow. Like, if we're doing PE, we want to grow our dick. That's it. So, what I recommend is injecting it locally in the fat pad right above it throughout the day, around the times of your workouts. So in the morning, I talk about, how, my routine is structured. In the morning, I like to do the manual exercises, and obviously the bath mate in the morning is like the strongest. I'll do like the hardest workout in the morning, and, like, I'll do some of the GH, maybe like 0.5 IU, either before or after, because GH is, when you inject it, it spikes and it stays elevated for about 2 hours, and then it drops off at around 4 hours. So, I'll take a shot maybe before working out of like 0.5 IU, and then after of 0.5 IU, depending on what your budget is and how much you can afford. Say you're going to do 2 IUs of generic growth, so that'll mean 4 shots a day of 0.5 IU. Which is a pretty, if it's strong GH, that's pretty damn good. Like, you don't really need to be blasting, 4 IUs in any one shot. I mean, we're not, we're not exactly 300-pound bodybuilders here. We're just like trying to get some size on our dick, pretty much, right? So you'll inject that locally, and you'll inject it around the time of your workout, because that's when your body's going to utilize it the most. You're putting stress on a body part, you're making it grow, you're making it stress. Naturally, your body would flood that area with nutrients and growth hormone and, like natural testosterone spikes and all that stuff. So that's pretty much how I would use it. I would, say we're talking about bodybuilding, and I'm really focused on arms that day. If I was going to use growth hormone and I wanted my arms to get the most out of it, I would inject it bilaterally in both biceps, either pre or post workout, depending on what the protocol was. But the point being is that inject it locally where you want there to be the most, what do they call it? It's hyperplasia, which means growth of new cells, new muscle cells, or new penile tissue or whatever. And, if you just do that throughout the day, you're going to get localized growth, near where you train. That's just bodybuilding basics 101. Like you inject, and that works for anabolics too. If you inject it, near the muscle that you trained, you're going to get local growth there. So people say that doesn't work. In my experience, it did work, and it definitely did make a difference. So that's my thought on this. I'll make a whole bunch of different videos about this stuff too, where we'll talk about, we'll talk about growth, we'll talk about BPC 157, we'll talk about TB 500, we'll talk about all these different compounds that are really good for PE, because I have a lot of guys asking me about it. So that's how I use it. I split it up throughout the day. Peace.